Okay, today I'm going to discuss a paper on the impact of the import competition from China on the labor market outcome from the US. This paper is written by Davey, and Gordon, published on AER. So let's get started. As I said, the focus on this paper is on the impact is on how the import competition affects the US labor market. And under the standard framework of the trade theory approach, when the researchers analyze the trade shock on the labor market, they tend to estimate the changes in wages based on the equilibrium relationship between the changes in product prices and the changes in factor prices. And also in some recent work, some authors they tend to treat the industry or occupation as the unit of analysis in their work. And then they make analysis on how the trade shock affects the changes in employment as well as the earnings for the workers. And for this paper, the authors they treat the regional economies, namely the commuting zones, as the unit of analysis. And the findings of this paper are twofolded, mainly. The first conclusion is that when the import competition from China increases, we can say a subsequent increase in unemployment, uh, as well as the take-up of public transfers benefits, and also a decline in labor force participation rate, as well as the wages. And it's worth mentioning that the increased use of public benefits, as well as the involuntary labor force non-participation rates, these are the two sources of efficiency loss from a trade adjustment. And as for the overall assessment of this paper, my first feeling is that this paper poses a very important research question in light of the fact that there has been a long-standing debate on the benefits of the international trade. And also, this paper has a very comprehensive investigation. The authors provide novel evidence on the public transfer payment as well as the labor force participation, both elements important but silent in previous studies. And I also think this paper has a very nice empirical design. So basically, the research topic of this paper is macro-oriented, but the authors they adopt a corporate finance oriented approach to analyze this question. And I personally really appreciate this synergy. Having said that, there are also some endogeneity issues and some further important questions, in my view, are well worth investigating. And the first part is on endogeneity. In estimating, in establishing causality, the authors use the Ivy estimation, where the dependent variable refers to the change in the US local labor market outcomes, such as employment, wages, etc. And the key independent variable here refers to the change in the Chinese import US exposure per worker. And based on the author's argument, since as the realized US imports may be correlated with the some industry import demand shocks, they decided to use the change in Chinese imports non-US exposure per worker from 8 other developed countries to instrument the key variable here. And as a natural starting point, one of the major concerns of the IV estimation is on the exclusion part, namely how to control some unobserved components that may adversely affect the manufacturing industries under the context of this paper, and hence affect the import. For example, maybe there may be given some shocks, the sales of US textile articles fall in the US market. And in response to this shock, the US government decides to import these articles from China. And basically um, this concern is similar to the productivity shocks as well as the technology shocks discussed by the authors in the paper. And also some thoughts on further research questions. The first thought is on the creative destruction. So based on the table 7 from the paper, the authors find some evidence suggesting a negative relationship between the input competition and the employment level. But the authors fail to find some evidence supporting a negative relationship between the input competition and the wage level. And the authors provide two explanations. The first potential explanation is that maybe what is left in the manufacturing sector in the US market is the most productive workers because they have their high skills, they retain their jobs in the manufacturing industry. And the second potential scenario is that maybe the plants they react by increasing the technological innovations that increase productivity and may raise wages. And my understanding is that both explanations imply a rise in total factor productivity in the manufacturing industry, which is consistent with creative destruction proposed by Schumpeter. And a follow-up suggestion is that it will be more interesting to say whether productivity or the TFP increases following the import competition. And the authors may take into account the utilization adjusted TFP from this paper as a potential dependent variable. And there's also a potential caution. It may take a long time, let's say several business cycles, for the creative destruction process to fully manifest itself. And a second thought is on the purchasing power. So basically, based on the table 6 from the paper, the authors find some evidence suggesting that the import competition has a negative impact on the wages level. But the question is, for a customer, let's say, though his income declines following the trade, he or she may access cheaper products with increased product variety. So we just want to know what the net outcome is. Does he purchase power? So does his purchasing power increase or not? I do think this question is very interesting and attention worthy, though it may be beyond the scope of this paper. And simply put, in summary, I think this paper has a very good empirical design, and I really appreciate the research question of this paper. And this concludes my discussion.